Hey everybody, what's going on? And welcome to Guns N' Roses Central. And I want to talk a bit about Chinese democracy. It's not something I've talked a whole lot about on my channel, but I want to talk more about it as you know the months go along. But I wanted to talk about this interesting interview that Guns N' Roses former drummer Brain did back in 2012. So he shed some light on what it was like to actually work on Chinese democracy, as well as tour with Guns N' Roses. So some of the stories are pretty ridiculous and crazy, and you can kind of make sense of why the album was so expensive and took so long to make. So he was talking about, the first show that he played in Rock in Rio with the band. He said that we did the first show at Rock in Rio. We rehearsed for probably 2 or 3 months without Axl. Our first show at Rock in Rio, and I thought, wait, what's it going to sound like with Axl? Where is Axl? Oh, here's his helicopter coming in. So the first time I played a real show with him was in front of 250,000 people. I was thinking, how's this song supposed to start again? Because some he was supposed to cue, but we never had a verbal conversation whether he would or I would. You look to your left and there was the Foo Fighters, Oasis, and Sting standing side stage. We were headlining that day and everyone was anxious to see what we were going to do because Axl had to put this motley group of people together. Brain also talked about the recording. So as you guys know, before Brain came into the band, Josh Freese was the drummer, and he recorded a lot of stuff. He recorded, about 25 to 30 tunes or so. And Brain said he had to basically record 90% of the drummings or re-record all these songs. So he said when I came in, it was right when they got Roy Thomas Baker to be the producer. Now, Roy Thomas Baker was really famous because he was the producer for Queen way back in the day. And he'd also produced the Cars, Journey, more of the rock thing. He said we had to go re-record the drums because they sounded very industrial. He said we literally drove in his green Rolls Royce around LA and we picked up from every drum company, probably every famous drum, and tried out every drum. We had them ship it to the village in LA where we were recording. He said we set up all these drums and I said this is a Guns N' Roses album, we need a vibe, and there was a temple upstairs that people used to do their speeches in. We went up there and it was a mini auditorium. As soon as I put the drums up there and hit them, I said, oh shit, this is the vibe. And he said they ran chords up there and eventually Buckethead set his chicken coop up there and that's where he recorded. Bucket and I would look at each other and he'd been in the chicken coop with the wire and he brought in the hay. We were set up there for 3 years recording. He also talked about recording with Axl. He said Axl is a perfectionist. Josh Freese, who is one of my favorite drummers, had already recorded some beautiful tracks, but they didn't have the sound. They were all very digital sounding. There wasn't a lot of air moving. They were electronic sounding. Axl liked some of the parts, so he asked if I could play what Josh did, but my feel, he wanted me to replay it note for note. So I thought if they want that, somebody's going to have to transcribe this. I made some calls and went over to Sony. I went over there and dropped off a handful of CDs and they transcribed it. They set it up on a teleprompter. I learned it and recorded it note for note. After that, Axl was like, now do it your way. I think what came out on the album was a hybrid of a little of Josh and what I did. He also talked a little bit more about recording the drums. He said there was another room with literally 30 snare drums lined up, 15 kick drums, cymbals stacked up like a music store, and it'd literally be, this one looks cool, let's try it with this. We just play some beats and see how it sounded. There were no time constraints, there was nothing. I don't think anybody was keeping track of it. I was going, I don't know who's paying for this or what's going on, but I really don't care because I get to come here and F off with one of the best studios in the world, with some of the best drums and some of the best recording gear. Everybody talks shit about Axl and GNR, but this is killer for me. Towards the end, we probably came up with one kit that sounded pretty solid, and we just changed out the snare. I'm Sorry, which he's probably referring to as the song Sorry, was more of the Pink Floyd thing, so I used a bigger kick, 24-inch or 26-inch. There was a time we used a 22-inch. We were just experimenting. We were having a ball, me and my drum tech. We would try something, record it, and send the CD to Axl. He'd check it out and saying, yeah, that's cool, or something. Or sometimes he'd come in, but his hours are pretty crazy, so he'd come in at 4 in the morning and listen. And then the final thing he really talked about was how his relationship with Axl was. He said Axl always treated me really good. Even when I left and Frank took over because I was having a kid, they were pretty accommodating. I think Axl was a little freaked out with another drummer coming in, but I did it. He let me do it, and it was kind of my decision not to come back because I was getting in some other stuff like producing and film soundtracks. But I'm still doing stuff. I've done some remixes for him. He's always been good with me. I know he's got a reputation, and I've seen it, and that makes him Axl Rose. He's running the whole ship. He's got a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of freaks trying to take shit from him. Also trying at one point, even on this last tour, he was calling me saying, hey, would you want to come and do a double drumming type of thing where you play all the new songs, Chinese, which are a little more technical, and let Frank do more of the rock stuff from the older days. I was considering it. I don't know if Frank wanted to do that, and I didn't want to put him in that position. And I didn't know if I wanted to do the Grateful Dead thing with 2 drummers. So that basically did it for the gist of the article. I've linked to it down below if you guys want to go check it out. I always find that the stories about Chinese democracy are really fascinating. There's a great, I think if you just Google Chinese whispers, Chinese democracy, you'll find out like every single fact you wanted to know about Chinese democracy broken up by a year and see what was happening in specific years with the band. So I'm hoping someday to maybe do a documentary on Chinese democracy or a true story episode, but it's going to take a lot of time to do that, and it probably would have to be broken up into different parts. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section, guys. What are your thoughts on Chinese democracy? Do you guys like the album a lot more than some of the previous Guns N' Roses albums, or do you like it less? Let me know in the comment section. And be sure to subscribe to my Guns N' Roses channel for all things related to GNR. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Twitter. The links to my social media are down below in the description box. So thanks for watching, guys, and have yourself a good day.